This is my latest book, Brexit 2029. It's set 100 years after the Wall Street crash of 1929, and it's in a post-Brexit Britain where smugglers have taken over. In the first chapter, Aubrey East, my hero, meets Adele and falls madly in love with her, and this results in rather tragic consequences. Here we go. Chapter 1, Brexit 2029. Chapter 1, Falling in Love. The first memory I have of Poseidon Bay was a bar called the Captain Bembo. It was a maze of rectangular rooms with cream matte paint on plaster walls. Ceiling fans were spinning overhead, wobbling on their black metal stalks, wafting the smell of steam perfume and cannabis about the place. All the tables around, and couples dressed in Parisian designer clothes, bought from the docks, sat drinking strong English craft ale in pint jugs and staring into each other's eyes. The dresses were black, the suits were black, and my mood was black. Women wearing elegant figure-hugging dresses smoked from long, elegant cigarette holders, the roaches stuffed deep into the stem, and the licorice-black Rizzler papers sizzling quietly. Wisps of thick cannabis smoke snaked to the ceiling. They had all crossed their elegant long legs, leaning forward on an elbow to get closer to their man. Not one of the women was under 5'9", and not one of the men under 6 feet. It was the land of the giants. Giants in well-fitting and expensive designer gear, but giants nonetheless. I surveyed my pint. I was alone, a stranger in town. I dared not stare at any of the pretty women. A glance at a man would be seen as an invitation to fight. I hated drinking beer from a glass with a handle and dimples. It reminded me of my father, not a pleasant man, all anger and fists. He always drank his beer out of a jug. He was a genius who chose my name, claiming it came from the German name Alberic, who was king of the elves in German mythology. He looked that up, I'm sure. I wish he'd called me Alberic. The truth is, he had a crush on Audrey Hepburn after seeing her in a rerun of Breakfast at Tiffany's on television, and I think he wanted a daughter. That was how I got a boy's name that could be turned into a girl's with the flick of a pen. My school years were miserable, especially as my mum let my hair grow, and I was considered a bit of a pretty boy. I became a lonely boffin, and I got to be salesman only when I was taken on by a steel mill. I sipped the cool beer. Bitter hops from Kent could not hide the inferior malt. They had added rice and sugar to the mix. That never worked, but it did not stop them from trying. I felt depressed by that. Smugglers even adulterated their own beer. I heard that you could get good craft beer in the big cities, but I doubted it. If you could, it would be the preserve of the rich. They got all the good stuff, but at a price. Normal people's pensions were held by companies that believed the casino, which was called the stock market, would provide such riches that all the problems of shortfalls would be solved in no time. We waited while the bankers paid themselves 3-figure bonuses, and the economy plummeted like a pigeon shot from the sky. I could do nothing about the financial situation in the country, so I went out to work. I was young, single, and careworn. It should have been carefree, but 2 out of 3 is a result these days. I should have been chatting to girls. I looked handsome and smart in my grey flannel trousers, blue blazer, and white open-neck shirt. Shiny shoes and black leather with laces completed the suave look. I looked sophisticated, and clearly my conversation would match my clothes. When I spoke to the gorgeous young lovely ladies of Poseidon Bay, they would all fall for my easy charm, my knowledge of books and of science, and of my great sense of humour. I have an uncanny ability to remember every joke I have heard. Unfortunately, there were no lovely ladies in this rat hole, just Amazonian giants with bottle-blonde hair and eyebrows plucked within an inch of their lives, who looked into the eyes of their thug-ugly boyfriends. I hated my boss too. Why had he sent me to this god-forsaken place, this den of iniquity? I needed to go to the loo. I walked out of my oblong into another, slightly narrower and slightly longer and slightly shabbier. The clientele was slightly rougher too. But they wore white suits made from Irish linen and open-necked Britannia blue silk shirts. Each breast pocket was festooned with a red silk handkerchief, spilling out in a defiant celebration of all things British. It was the uniform of the successful smuggler set. Finding the loo, which was identified by a huge green neon sign above yet another doorway, alerting me to its existence. I was surprised at how cavernous and clean the place was. You can guess the shape of the room by now, but there were floor-to-ceiling mirrors, a bank of cubicles on the far wall, and on another wall a row of huge oblong butler's sinks in heavy white ceramics. Above them, gold taps protruded from under a shelf laden with fluffy white flannels, which were used for drying hands. It was like an international hotel, not a high street bar. The soap on the shelf, slotted between each pile of flannels, had a warrant from the king. He still maintained his Duchy of Cornwall estates brand, even if most of his land had been purloined or been squatted on by the citizens of the country. It smelt like chamomile and lavender. There was a little wicker basket for the used towels. I tossed two into the bottom of the empty basket. Clearly, I was the only one who bothered to wash his hands in this place. I made a mental note to wash my hands back at the hotel. There must be fecal matter on every surface here, I reckoned. I only trusted the beer glass because I had seen it come out of the dishwasher, although I could not vouch for the barman who touched the handle. At least the matter would be on the outside of the glass rather than on the inside, though that might add to the flavour. It needed all the help it could get. Returning to the table, there were two dockers standing next to my empty glass. They had their Union Jack hard hats in their hands and were approached by a tall woman in a black dress, followed obediently by her shorter minder or boyfriend, dressed in a red, white and blue suit. She handed each of them a wad of plasticised £20 notes. Which they openly checked for authenticity. No one trusted anyone in this place. She smiled, they nodded, and she wafted past them, leaving a trail of steam perfume behind her. They looked at each other without expression, but I could tell what they were thinking, and it did not involve the man who followed the beauty from the room. I thought how horrified she would be if she knew what their plans might be. Appreciative but discreet glances from men whose partners were looking into their glasses or ashtrays led me to believe she was considered a beauty in Poseidon Bay. She left the room. It was time for action. "Which one of you drank my beer?" I asked bravely, rolling my shoulders so they could see how broad they were under my navy blazer. I wished that I had packed my leather biker's jacket and black jeans that I normally wore to look hard in places like this. I breathed in so my grey flannel trousers actually looked like they fitted me. A paunch is never very threatening. "Not us, Gav. We wouldn't drink beer, fam. Lager depth charge. That's our tipple. Isn't that right, Roy?" the taller said, smiling at me. He was big and broad like a bear. His partner was short and squat, and smiled at me only once his friend had. He wore a very beery moustache. The froth on it smelt of my pint, I was sure, but I let it go. It was not good odds. I had been to the gym yesterday, but that had been the first time in 3 months. They were shifting smuggled goods on a daily basis, barrels of cognac, boxes of perfume bottles, which they unloaded by hand. The forklift trucks used too much electricity. The tidal boom power station, which was being built for this part of the English coast, was 3 years behind schedule, as well as 3 times over budget. The power cuts would have brought all the smuggling activities to a halt if it weren't for grafters like these. They would get their tips, what they called bunts, anywhere they could. Normally it was a percentage of what they unpacked or unloaded. In my case, it was my drink. It was stupid of me to leave my pint unattended. They left sharpish. I looked around the room. If anyone had witnessed the altercation, they were doing a very good impersonation of carrying on as if nothing had happened. They were used to looking the other way, especially when unloading or receiving stolen goods. Obviously, the smugglers shrugged and kept themselves to themselves. I was down to my last tenner, enough for a pint. There was no way I would visit the cash machine at dark around this place. I would get some more money out in daylight hours. It was a company cash card. All the expenditure would have to be accounted for, and all the drinks would be docked from my wages at the end of the week. My boss was tough. No one within a 70-mile radius accepted anything except for cash. I could use the card to get money out of the hole in the wall at exorbitant rates. I could not use contactless anywhere outside the main cities. Smugglers only ever took cash. Striding up to the bar, I waited my turn. 1 barman and 3 customers. You never had to wait long. People nurse their pints these days, along with a lot of other things. "Another pint of your Pope's toe, please." Someone snaffled my pint earlier on. I complained, hoping he would replace my pint for free. If I was looking for sympathy, the barman's raised eyebrows did not instill me with confidence. "Hardly surprising, is it? You are in the biggest smuggling harbour in the world, I should think, Einstein. How did you know my name? Is that really your name? No, just kidding. I'm new in town. I heard Poseidon Bay was a tough place, but I thought my pint would be safe. The barman looked at me as if I was mad. I stood my ground. I was going to get another pint, even if I had to pay for it.